Chapter 1. Interface. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'm not angry, I'm not angry. Tang Rui looked at half-formed airplane model parts in the 3D printer and took a deep breath. He shouldn't get angry. Was material blockage and breakage a problem with the 3D printer? No, it wasn't. He was the problem. It was because he did not have the means to buy a more advanced laser 3D printer. Wasn't it normal for the material to be blocked and cut off when using these hot-melt printers? He wasn't angry. Tang Rui closed the program, cut off the power, and skillfully cleaned up the trash. This set of movements was so practiced that only one knew how often he must have failed. Less than 5 minutes later, after cleaning up the trash and refilling the filament, he started the printing program again. There were no problems this time. The front landing gear part of the aircraft model was quickly printed out, and after buffing out some rough edges, it was ready for service. Tang Rui collected the parts, returned to the workbench, and began to put the model together. The last component has been printed. Although there was a small problem previously, it didn't affect. While assembling the aircraft model, he talked to the camera and occasionally explained. This was basically his daily routine. As the owner of the online shop for aircraft models and the admin of the small broken website, his daily job was to receive orders from the online shop, then assemble the machines on the spot before finally uploading the video onto the site. By selling airplane models and posting videos, he could make some money. He even sold models to his fans. Most of the orders in his online store came from this. Of course. That wasn't to say that he made a lot. An airplane model went for 320 yuan, but the cost was already 260 yuan. Thus, all he could earn was money from his craftsmanship. On the other hand, Xiaopa Station had earned a lot, though it wasn't some crazy amount. As the upmaster of the artisan section, he had more than 10,000 fans. Unfortunately, that wasn't nearly enough to make good money. However, he was not in a hurry. After all, he had just graduated, and this account had been in operation for less than 4 months. He could just have a promising future. Alright, the model's assembled. Next, we'll test it. Tang Rui turned off the camera on his mobile phone and left home with the aircraft model. Few would observe the process of building an aircraft model, but the same couldn't be said about fans of aeromodeling shows. His fans, however, had a strange affinity for watching those planes explode. This was rather abnormal. However, in order to increase his fans, he had to give up on his high-end aircraft model operation skills and do some work from time to time. Who cared if they called him a drifter? So what if he failed all the time? It was still an honest wage. And that wasn't too shabby. He brought his equipment to the square in the park behind the residential area. There was basically no one in the square during the day. Come nightfall, though, the elderly folks began to appear to dance in the square. Even children wouldn't find a place if they wanted to ride on the roller coaster. Tang Rui put the phone on the stand and took out his 6-channel radio controller. The controller came separately from the aircraft, of course, or it wouldn't sell for a mere 320 yuan. He turned on his phone's camera and turned on the motors. Everyone, listen to the sound of this 70mm 12-blade duct fan. It's absolutely powerful. Tang Rui bragged while he toggled with the control surfaces of the plane. After ensuring that there were no problems, he directly increased the throttle, and the aircraft began to thrust ahead. After a short 3-meter roll, the nose of the plane flared up, and the aircraft shot straight into the sky under the thrust of the powerful engine. Today's agenda will begin. According to the usual routine, we will perform a roll, then a side drop, and an inverted flight. Finally, we will perform a low-altitude pass. After these maneuvers, and there are no problems with the model, it should be a tailwind all the way. Under Tang Rui's control, the plane pulled a few standard maneuvers. As a veteran R/C pilot of over 3 years, it was not difficult for him to fly such a model. A truly awesome model, however, could display a vortex as it passed by. Now that was true speed. His model, however, could only be considered a toy. However, there was nothing he could do. After all, toys made money. Everyone could afford this model, that cost merely 200 to 300 yuan. Even if it crashed, it would not hurt. If it were a gas-turbine-powered aircraft, however, the engine alone could cost at least 10,000 yuan. As for the better ones, there was simply no limit. There were those that cost 100,000. Even a 200,000 yuan R/C jet was not unheard of. The complicated avionics and flight controls notwithstanding, one stood to lose thousands of yuan if he didn't operate it well. If it wasn't for the fact that they had a mine at home, who could afford to play with it? That was why no one had asked him to order a gas turbine model even after he had opened the online store for 4 months. This left him with no room to display what he had learned. The flight test is successful. As everyone can see, it flies great, and the operation is as smooth as silk. Ah! Tang Rui, who was currently bragging, suddenly felt his vision turn black, and he sat down on the ground. He only recovered after a good while. Fortunately, he had already landed the plane. Otherwise, he would have lost another one. Is he anemic? Or was it because he suddenly stood up after squatting for too long? Constricted blood flow. After Tang Rui recovered, he frowned and muttered something. He was only in his 20s, and was in completely good health. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have such a problem. Could it have been all those late nights he'd been pulling lately? That shouldn't be the case. When he was writing his graduation thesis, staying up late was an understatement. Could it be that he really wanted to soak wolfberries in a thermos cup? That would be too embarrassing. He stood up and moved around a little, but he felt that there was nothing wrong with his body. Tang Rui threw the issue of healthcare to the back of his mind. After re-recording the ending video, he prepared to pack his things and go home. Next, he had to disassemble the aircraft model, mail it to the buyer, and edit the video to upload. Time was of the essence. F***ck. Just as Tang Rui put away the phone stand and was about to pick up the model and go home, he suddenly discovered that a virtual panel had appeared on the airplane. Item. Fixed Wing Model Airplane, EXP, 35, 100, Origin Point. 0.1, what was going on? The cheat was transferred to his account. But what was with this cheat? Tang Rui's mind was full of question marks. After calming down, he realized that there was no other item other than the airplane model. This made him wonder if there was something wrong with this airplane. He shelved that thought. Tang Rui directly put away the airplane model and returned home. He had just arrived home, and before he could study the aircraft model and the cheat, the buyer sent him a message asking when he could deliver. Delivery. It was impossible to ship this one. He could, however, make a new model and send it to the other party. I'll send it to you immediately. I'm waiting for the courier to come and pick it up. After Tang Rui replied to a message, he immediately got to work and started work on a new model. This 300 yuan airplane model was a pretty easy task. If he didn't make a video, he could finish it in 2 hours. The main thing was the flight controls and decals would take some effort, but the other accessories could be installed after final assembly. Tang Rui spent more than an hour recreating a new airplane model. However, after he was done assembling it, a faint light flashed across its surface. If it weren't for the fact that it was rather dark in the house, he wouldn't have been able to see this glimmer. As the faint light disappeared, a transparent panel appeared above the model. Item. Fixed Wing Model Airplane, Experience. 0/100, Origin Point. 0.2, Tang Rui looked at the transparent panel and fell into deep thought. Chapter 2. Rich Experience. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If there was a panel on the previous model, it might be because it had a problem. Now that the new model also had a panel, it was not just a problem with the airplane. It was obvious. After he finished building this unit, the panel appeared with a faint light. The other items lacked such a panel, yet there was one on his model. In other words, the panel appeared because he was its maker. Thinking of this, Tang Rui became a little excited. Could this be his golden finger that had been delayed for more than 20 years? Item. Fixed-wing model airplane, experience. 0/100, origin point. 0.2, he then looked at the interface. Yes. The more he looked, the more familiar it seemed. Why did he look like Deep Blue's brother? So where did the plus sign go? Could it be that there weren't enough origin points? Tang Rui looked at the data on the panel. The data of this new model was different from the data of the previous model. One was experience points. The new model did not give any experience points, but the previous one did. With this comparison, it could be seen that the experience points were obviously related to whether or not they were used. The second was the origin point. The data on the panel of the first model had also changed to 0.2. This meant that it had a common point of origin and was not owned by a single aircraft model. And the increase in origin points should be related to the new airplane model he made. Tang Rui felt that there should be no problem with his speculation. However, since there was no manual for his cheat, his speculation remained as that. However, this did not affect him from experimenting. Was experience related to usage? Just try it, and you'd know. He picked up the first airplane model and left the house, arriving at the square. This time, he didn't bring a lot of stuff, nor did he plan to shoot a video. After arriving at the square, they immediately released the aircraft model. As the airplane model took off, he followed the previous operation and controlled the plane with various maneuvers. He had almost replicated all the maneuvers that he had tested previously. The FLGHT time was about the same as before. After all of this was done, he landed the plane and ran over to look at the data on the panel of the fuselage. Item. Fixed-wing model airplane, experience. 73/100, origin point. 0.2, sure enough, the experience points increased, but the origin points did not change. Very good. It was just as he had anticipated. The EXP of an item could only be obtained by using it. He took 2 steps back. Tang Rui once again launched the plane into the sky and continued to pull various patterns and maneuvers. Based on the experience gained from the previous 2 flights, he could make an assumption. This time, upon landing, the experience points should be full. When the time came, he would know the use of experience. 3 minutes later. The airplane landed again. Tang Rui rushed over impatiently and checked the situation on the airplane model panel. Item. Fixed-wing model airplane, experience. 112/100, upgradable, origin point. 0.2, as expected, his experience bar was full, and there was even a little extra. He picked up the model and ran home. Although he really wanted to know the effect of the upgrade. However, he didn't dare to upgrade the aircraft model outside. Who knew if there would be any special effects when he leveled up? After returning home. After he drew the curtains, he couldn't wait to upgrade the aircraft model. Swoosh! A faint light flashed. The entire aircraft model had changed. If the previous airplane model was a pauper's version, this would be the novice version. Some of the flaws at the corners had all been repaired. Some of the crooked spots on the fuselage of the aircraft were also corrected. There were no visible flaws on its surface. Tang Rui opened the battery compartment and found that there were no changes inside. But even so, the quality of the entire model had improved a lot. If one wanted to sell something, one had to be humble. This airplane model could be sold for at least 600 to 700 yuan. The effect of this upgrade is not bad. It directly corrected whatever flaws it came with. Ednel.co. After Tang Rui carefully examined it inside and out, he came to a conclusion. Then, he looked at the panel on the aircraft model. Item. Fixed-wing model airplane +1, experience. 12/200, origin point. 0.2, good heavens. After that, he directly sent a message to the first model. It was really perfunctory. His experience points had doubled. However, the EXP required to continue leveling up was not much. However, if it kept increasing at this rate, the experience required to level up later would be too exaggerated. Just as Tang Rui was about to carry the airplane downstairs to continue getting experience points, his doorbell rang. He looked through the peephole. It was a delivery boy who had come to pick up the parcel. "Brother Rui, how many items are you going to mail today?" the courier asked as he held the cardboard box. "Just one." "Wait a moment, I'll go get it." After Tang Rui finished speaking, he returned to the workroom. He looked at the aircraft model that he had made before, which had 0 experience, and fell into deep thought. After a while, he came out with the airplane model. "This is the address. Help me fill it in. I have something urgent to do here." "It's no trouble. It's a small matter. I'll leave first." After the delivery man was done, he left with the aircraft model. Tang Rui closed the door and sent a message to the customer. "Good day. Your airplane model has been mailed. I've modified the flight control software. If you find any problems after using it, you can contact me at any time." He had decided to send out this model after some consideration. Mainly, he wanted to see if others would gain any experience from using it. After a while, he could use the lucky draw as an excuse to upgrade the model for free. He could totally get the customer to mail the aircraft model back. When the time came, he would know the situation. Actually, it didn't matter, even if someone else used his airplane model to gain experience points. Others could not see the interface. They could not upgrade the model through the interface. Under such circumstances, even if he obtained experience points, it would be the same as not obtaining them. "Thank you, Fish Pond," the buyer quickly replied. Fish Pond was his handle on Little P Station. Since the customer could call him by this name, he could be considered a fan of his. Tang Rui took a look and simply replied with a smiley face before putting down his phone. He got up and went to the workshop. He took out a spare battery and left the house with the aircraft model again to continue gaining experience points. He wanted to know what other surprises there were for the next level up. Half an hour later, Tang Rui removed the battery from the aircraft model and replaced it with another one. At this moment, the airplane experience points had reached 411 of 200. Experience points were overflowing. However, even if he did not level up, he could still continue to gain experience points every time he flew. Therefore, Tang Rui did not go back to upgrade the aircraft model but continued to work on the experience. He planned to go back and level up after the backup battery was used up. 40 minutes later, the battery had also been used up, and his experience points had reached 963/200. With this experience, he should be able to ascend a few levels. Tang Rui returned home satisfied. On the way back, he bought a pancake at the entrance of the neighborhood to solve the problem of lunch. Chapter 3. Leveling up and adding points. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Back home, he nibbled on the pancake, eager to click on the upgrade button. Swoosh! Another flash of light. The aircraft model was upgraded again. However, after this upgrade, his appearance did not seem to have changed. Item. Fixed-wing model airplane +2, experience. 763/400, upgradable, origin point. 0.2, Tang Rui looked at the data on the panel and confirmed that the upgrade was already completed. He picked up the airplane model and sized it up. There were no changes to the exterior. If it weren't for the +2 on the interface, one would never be able to tell that it had been upgraded. However, when he opened the battery compartment and saw the situation inside the body, his eyes widened. The position of the internal parts of the aircraft had been fine-tuned. The landing gear slot was completely integrated with the aircraft. The circuit board and battery positions had also changed. At the very least, the center of gravity was more reasonable. Although there was no test flight. But according to Tang Rui's experience, this upgraded airplane model's performance in all aspects was definitely much stronger than before. He continued. He put down the airplane model and clicked to upgrade again. Swoosh! A faint blue light flashed, and Tang Rui's eyes lit up. Even the light of leveling up had changed. As expected, the effect of this upgrade was visible to the naked eye. The entire body of the aircraft model had become the same as the real one. F***CK. Tang Rui looked at the scale model in front of him and was so surprised that even the pancake in his mouth almost fell out. This effect of the upgrade was rather exaggerated. You said that it wasn't a scale replica before. Nonsense. An airplane model that costs 200 to 300 yuan. You think that would buy you a replica scale model? Dream on. It's already good enough that he'd installed 2 pieces of EP panels on your tail. Tang Rui stuffed the pancake into his mouth in 2 or 3 bites, then picked up the airplane model and looked at it carefully. Good heavens! Not only was the fuselage an exact reproduction of the real thing, but even the instruments in the cockpit had been replicated. Holding the airplane model, he laughed excitedly. Fortunately, he didn't have Shura Yen, or else the Uchiha family would have another hero. But not long after. His laughter stopped abruptly. Because he found that there was a problem with the data on the model. Item. Exquisite fixed-wing aircraft model +3, experience. 363/ Cannot be upgraded, origin point. 0.2, was there no way to level up? Did he lack the necessary conditions to continue leveling up, or had he reached the peak? As for the name of the aircraft model, it was not a problem. Such situations were too common in the game. There was no need to care. After Tang Rui pondered for a moment, he decided not to think about this problem first. Since he could not continue leveling up, it would be a problem he'd have to consider. He would first figure out the problem of the origin point. This was similar to the deep blue panel. The most powerful function was not to level up, but to add points. According to the current information, he could get 0.1 origin points by making an airplane model. Thus, he would first accumulate his origin points to 1 point and see what the situation was like. If he wanted to do it, he would do it. Tang Rui put down the airplane model and went to the workbench, and started on a new one. All kinds of materials and accessories were readily available. He had just received a batch of tools 3 days ago. He skillfully cut the boards, made the fuselage, then installed the accessories and stuck on the decals. It was a process he was very familiar with. However, no matter how familiar he was, an airplane model needed to be meticulously assembled and adjusted bit by bit. He worked hard from noon until 10 p.m. and finally managed to assemble 8 new airplane models. It was just as he had guessed. Every time he made a new model, he would get 0.1 origin points. Including the previous 2 models, he had completed a total of 10 aircraft models. To say he was overworked was an understatement. After finishing up the final touches on the last airplane model, he was so tired that he slumped to the ground. His waist was sore. However, all his efforts had paid off. The origin points had finally reached 1. The data on the airplane model finally changed. Item. Exquisite fixed-wing aircraft model +3, experience. 363/. Cannot be upgraded, origin point. 1, can be strengthened, it was indeed the point system. Tang Rui chose strengthen. However, at this moment, four enhancement options appeared on the entire aircraft model. Body, flight controls, power source, and engine. These 4 points represented the most important parts of the aircraft model. When he made his choice, every part would light up, allowing for an easy understanding of the specific situation of the part that he wanted to strengthen. It was quite intelligent. Tang Rui curled his lips and sat there thinking. First, eliminate flight controls. This kind of model airplane had very low requirements for the flight control system. Even if the software was upgraded, it would not be much better due to the overall performance of the model airplane. The battery he was using was not the best on the market, though there was no need to improve its performance. A gas engine was still possible, but a 12-bladed 70mm duct fan was also possible. The thrust would be sufficient. If that was the case, only the fuselage was left. After all, the material of the body was too trashy. Thinking of this, Tang Rui did not hesitate, choosing to directly reinforce the fuselage. Swoosh! A blue light flashed. The body that was originally made of epoxy material instantly became more realistic and had a metallic luster. Even the original decals on the body had become a coating. This change made him gasp. It was simply ridiculous. He reached out and touched the cold body, feeling the smoothness of its surface and the lightness of its body. This is F*King aviation alloy. Tang Rui reacted very quickly. This texture was definitely an alloy material specially used for aviation. Was this what the system meant by adding points? It was too awesome. He directly transformed the body of the EP material into an aerospace alloy. At this moment, Tang Rui's hand holding the airplane model was trembling. For someone who knew little about the aerospace industry, they might not be too excited. But Tang Rui understood. This was what he learned. Although he was just an online shop owner and a part-time up master, he was a professional. He graduated from Nanjing Institute of Technology and majored in aircraft design and engineering. He had only graduated less than half a year ago. He had not forgotten what he had learned. Strengthening the body of an aircraft model was nothing. However, what if he were to strengthen a real fighter jet? The effect would be absolutely heaven-defying. Furthermore, not only could the system strengthen the body but also the engine, avionics, and other parts. As long as there were enough source points, the aircraft could be upgraded as a whole. It was a pity. Even if he had a cheat, he couldn't build a fighter jet. However, just because he couldn't build fighter jets didn't mean that he couldn't build drones. Now, he had the complete drone avionics system package in his hands. This was something he got from China Southern Airlines. There was absolutely no problem. With this avionics system package, he only needed to buy the spare parts to assemble a drone. However, he still needed to think carefully about which direction this drone should develop in. He wasn't planning to make a civilian drone. Even if he made better drones than DJI, it would be meaningless. If he wanted to do something, he would do something big. With the system interface in hand, if he didn't want to open a firearms company and make a name for himself, he would be too useless to be a up master at the little police station. Chapter 4. Assembling the drone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning. When Tang Rui woke up from the sofa, the sun was already high above his head. He picked up his phone. It was already 10:30 in the morning. Suck. He drew a deep breath of cold air. He had been tired all day yesterday. At night, he was thinking about the drone when he unknowingly fell asleep on the soft sofa. In the end, his entire body ached to the bone. Especially his waist. The moment he stood up, he felt very relieved. Tang Rui stood and moved his body. After feeling the soreness of his cervical vertebra and waist, he felt very ball-aching. Although making aircraft models was not a physical job, great damage to the cervical spine, spine, and waist could be caused if one had to bend down all the time. Notwithstanding the high-intensity, long-term work like yesterday, if he did this often, something would happen sooner or later. If only I could add points to my body. At this moment, he wished that his cheat could add points to his body like Deep Blue. Wait a minute. Should he create a massager and try upgrading it? Forget it. That would be something for later. Let's go eat first. I'm starving. He spent 5 minutes washing up and changing clothes. Tang Rui took his phone and left the house. The shop that sold breakfast was very close to his house. There were several shops outside the neighborhood. They arrived at the familiar breakfast shop. As usual, he ordered a bowl of rice, 2 steamed buns, a plate of pickled vegetables, and a herbal egg. As he ate, he opened the little PlayStation app and clicked on the background. Oh nom nom. Where's up? He didn't leave the internet cafe. Who said that he had to update daily for 3 months? It hadn't even been a month, so why did it stop? The melon seeds and snacks are ready. I'm waiting for up to do a handstand to wash my hair. These messages gave Tang Rui a splitting headache. He had indeed forgotten to update the video yesterday, and he had also forgotten that he had bragged that he'd post a daily update for 3 months. It was very awkward now. He had bragged, so he definitely had to fulfill his promise. Was he really going to do a handstand and wash his hair? The herbal egg in his mouth lost its fragrance when he thought of the scene of the death of the society. He put down his phone. It wasn't a matter he should bother for now. At most, after the drone was done, he would start a live broadcast to fulfill his promise. When Tang Rui returned home, he started to rummage through boxes and cabinets. Although he had fallen asleep when he was thinking about the problem yesterday, he had some ideas. The drone was not something that could be done with a pat on the head. It had to be combined with reality. Even if he had a cheat, he could not escape from reality. What was this reality? The reality was that he had no money. A real drone would contain all kinds of equipment inside. For example, high-definition cameras, infrared thermal imaging cameras, synthetic aperture radars, laser radars, and multispectral lenses. Discounting the fact that he lacked all that equipment, he still needed the most basic ones. Without optical cameras and radars, what drone would that be? In addition, the entire avionics system also needed to be equipped with onboard computers, communications, radar, navigation, fire control, flight control, and many other modules, not to mention the motors, which was the most difficult thing to deal with. If he didn't have the system interface. Even if he was given more money, he could forget about making a real drone by himself. However, it was different with the system interface. He definitely did not have the money to buy the equipment and difficulties listed above, but he could upgrade and strengthen them through the system interface. However, the system interface could upgrade and strengthen items, but it also required something. That was why he started to rummage through the cabinets to find substitutes for this equipment after he returned. During his years in university, he had tinkered with a lot of things. There were all kinds of amazing people in the aeromodeling club, and no one had much money. If he needed accessories, he could only do it himself. After all, the school had a laboratory. The equipment inside could be used, and they could even get some materials. Therefore, in the past few years, he had also made a lot of good things. Crash. He took out 2 large boxes from the cabinet. Then, he took out an A4-sized circuit board from a box. There were many wires connected to the circuit board. On the other end of the wires were the transmitter and receiver. I finally found it. Tang Rui blew away the dust on the circuit board, his face full of smiles. The full name of this thing was the S-band micro-power phased array radar. This type of radar belonged to the FMCW, frequency modulated continuous wave, type. Not only did it not look good, but you couldn't even buy it on the market. He got his hands on it only because he had borrowed it from a graduate student when he was in the university's aeromodeling club. Later on, that senior brother asked him out for a drink. When he was bragging after drinking, he gave this thing to him. He didn't know if that senior brother regretted it or not. Anyway, after that time, that senior never drank with him again. Now, that senior was doing research and development in the China Electric Power Science and Technology Department. His technical level was quite impressive. He had strayed off topic. Since the phased array radar was done, the other equipment was even easier to deal with. The engine had been directly dismantled from his precious airplane model. These were two real jet engines. The standard thrust was 80 N, 8 kilograms, with an RPM of 5.18 K, with a fuel consumption of 200 G/min. The skeleton was easy to deal with. First, he would use some junk parts to build it, then add points to upgrade it. The same method was used for the optical equipment. First, the camera was installed, and then the points were added later. The equipment was nothing. The real problem was avionics integration. To others, the difficulty of combining all these pieces together was no less than designing a new system. However, it was just a matter of strengthening the body for the system panel. Tang Rui took the strengthened airplane model from last night to the workbench. Item. Exquisite fixed-wing aircraft model +3, experience. 363/ Cannot be upgraded, enhancement. Body, origin. 0, after a round of strengthening, a new attribute list appeared on the interface. However, the EXP bar was still not upgradable. Crack. Tang Rui did not hesitate at all and directly dismantled this exquisite airplane model. Batteries, motherboards, turbines, and cockpit. Other than the entire body of the aircraft model, all other parts were removed. Then, he roughly expanded the engine exhaust at the back of the body and stuffed the two turbine engines inside. It was really forced in. The body was deformed. However, these were all small problems, so he pretended not to see them. Bang! The wires connected to the radar's main board were cut off, and he stuffed the transmitter, receiver, and transceiver into the body. Then, these wires were casually soldered on the edge of the CPU main board without being connected to the circuit. This was his intentional use of the wires. Once it was connected, his CPU would be useless. At that time, he would not even be able to start the turbine engine. At the moment, he did not need this drone to have any functions. The only requirement was that it could fly. Therefore, the other components were not important. The most important things were the flight controls and engines. After putting all these things in, there was almost no space left in the body. Tang Rui looked at it, adjusted it a little, moved some space, and stuffed the battery plug and flight control board in. This time, the fuselage was completely stuffed. The camera could only be placed in the driver's seat, and the lens could only be pointed at the sky. It wasn't completely useless, per se, but it could use a bit of improvement. Done. Tang Rui snapped his fingers, very satisfied with his masterpiece. But at that moment, the panel on the airplane model attracted him. Item. Damaged fixed-wing drone +3, experience. 363/ Cannot be upgraded, enhancement. Body, reparable, origin. 0. Chapter 5. Avionics Enhancement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There was actually an additional repair option for the body. This was something Tang Rui did not expect. There was nothing to hesitate about. He directly chose to repair it. Swoosh! A faint light flashed. The body of the aircraft, which the turbine engine had deformed, had been restored to its original state. Even the back of the engine was extended with a thrust vector. Item. Damaged fixed-wing drone +3, experience. 163/ Cannot be upgraded, enhancement. Body, origin. 0, he looked at the system interface again and saw that 200 points had reduced his experience points. In other words, repairing the body required the consumption of experience points. However, although the drones had been repaired, the system panel still had the word damaged. This meant that the onboard electronic system had not been repaired. In that case, only the strengthened parts could be repaired with experience points. Thinking of this, the first thing Tang Rui thought of was the engine. If the engine was strengthened, even if it was damaged, it could be repaired by using experience points. That would be awesome. He was thinking too much. The most important problem now was to improve the avionics. Should he continue to work? When Tang Rui thought of making aircraft models again, he felt a little ball-ache. However, where would they get the origin points if they didn't make aircraft models? Without origin points, how could he improve the avionics? Wait a minute. If he didn't make airplane models, would he be able to obtain origin points by making something else? Could the origin points obtained from crafting other items be used to strengthen the aircraft model? Thinking of this problem, Tang Rui's heart moved. He could try to make something else. What should he build? What was easy to make, fast to make, and not expensive? Tang Rui sat on the chair and thought. According to his experience with yesterday's aircraft model, the system interface would only appear when he personally made something. The definition of personally making was too broad. Did folding a paper plane count? How about that? Give it a try. What if it worked? Tang Rui's heart heated up, and he picked up a piece of A4 paper from the printer. Anyone could fold paper airplanes. However, as a professional, the paper airplane he folded was also very impressive. He turned on the camera on his phone. Hello, everyone. I'm your favorite fish pond. For today's aircraft model, I chose one that everyone can learn. It doesn't require any tools or professional skills. You can do it as long as you have hands. Without further ado, Fish Pond demonstrated folding a paper airplane to everyone. First, take a piece of paper and fold it in half. Tang Rui faced the camera and demonstrated as he spoke. The paper airplane he folded wasn't your regular origami affair. The first part was the nose. A canard wing had to be folded out of paper. Then, the wing had to be folded at a special angle. The folded paper plane could maintain a stable flight. Even if it descended, it would descend in a parallel manner. There would not be a crash with the nose facing down. Why is it so awesome? Don't ask. The question was about aerodynamics. He did not create the folding method of this paper airplane. It had been circulating in their profession for a long time. It was said that this model was designed by a big shot using some advanced software. He didn't know the specifics. In any case, a paper airplane, when folded like this, would indeed fly like a bird. When Tang Rui finished folding the paper airplane's wings, he straightened them. A faint light appeared. F***CK. It really could. Item. Paper airplane, experience. 0/20, origin point. 0.01, Tang Rui looked at the system panel on the paper airplane, and his body went numb. At this moment, other than excitement, he was also a little devastated. If he had known this would happen. Why was he so silly as to make an airplane model yesterday? Wasn't it good to fold paper airplanes? Although a paper airplane only gave 0.01 origin points, it was easy to fold. Most importantly, A4 paper was cheap. The 10 airplane models from yesterday cost 2,600 yuan. If they couldn't sell it, they would just smash it in their hands. A4 paper was cheap. 100 yuan could buy 500 copies. The more he thought about it, the more his heart ached. He wanted to give himself 2 slaps. He took a deep breath. Tang Rui took out a pack of A4 paper, placed it on the workbench, and then faced the camera of the phone. It's okay if you didn't learn it the first time. Let's continue. Today, he promised to teach everyone. If there were anything that he couldn't learn, it would be the upmaster's problem. Come, let's continue folding. 1 paper airplane. 2 paper airplanes. 10 paper airplanes. Tang Rui kept folding and folding paper to make paper airplanes. However, after folding more than 30 paper airplanes, his fingers started to hurt. It didn't matter. This was not a big problem. He put on his gloves and continued. He didn't even eat lunch. After all, he had a late breakfast, so he wasn't hungry at all. Since he was not hungry, he would continue. He didn't stop until past 6 in the evening. At this moment, he was surrounded by paper airplanes. The ground was covered. Moreover, it was not just one layer. It was piled up to a height of more than 30 centimeters. It looked like he was buried alive by paper planes. How's that? Everyone knows how to make this. If he hadn't learned it yet, well, he should be checking himself into the hospital. He checked his brain. If there were nothing wrong with his brain, he would install a prosthetic leg. Alright, that's all for today. He turned off the camera. Tang Rui leaned back on the chair, feeling that his entire person had been hollowed out. His hands trembled subconsciously. As expected. If one didn't push himself, he wouldn't know how awesome he was. He had never thought about it. Why would he be so crazy? However, looking at the 5 origin points on the system interface, he felt that everything was worth it. People were not afraid of being tired, nor were they afraid of giving. He was afraid that he would not get anything in return. The perfect positive feedback on the system panel could completely solve this problem. He rested for a while. Tang Rui swept all the paper airplanes on the workbench to the ground and pulled the airplane model beside him over. Strengthening. He chose the location, avionic. He had thought that he could directly strengthen it after he had finished choosing. Unexpectedly, the avionic part was divided into 2 options. Hardware and software. There was nothing to choose. Tang Rui directly chose to strengthen the hardware. Swoosh. A faint blue light flashed. The enhancement was complete. The exterior of the drone definitely didn't change much. The main thing was the interior. Tang Rui couldn't wait to open it, wanting to see the situation inside. Suck. When he saw the avionic equipment inside, he still gasped in surprise. Even though he was mentally prepared, he still gasped in surprise. The originally chaotic interior of the body had completely changed. All kinds of equipment were installed together, and all the circuits were neat and orderly. The biggest change was the motherboards. The original flight control motherboards, radar motherboards, and CPU motherboards were all different. Now, the 3 motherboards had been perfectly fused together, and there were 3 CPU chips embedded in them. Item. Damaged fixed, wing drone +3, experience. 163/. Cannot be upgraded, enhancement. Body, avionics, hardware, origin. 3, this time, he directly consumed 2 origin points. Perhaps it was because the avionics were more complicated. However, the header was still damaged, probably because there was no problem with the avionic system. However, he did not intend to use the system panel to enhance the avionics. He wanted to see if the off-the-shelf avionics could work. Chapter 6. Test flight of the drone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tang Rui turned on the computer. He inserted the data cable into the main board interface of the avionics system and imported the avionics system. In less than 10 minutes, the entire avionics system was completed. This avionics system had very high operational requirements. After all, this was not your run.off.the.mill, off.the.shelf airplane model. It was a real drone system. Although it was a relatively simple drone system, it had everything it needed. He opened the operating system interface on the computer and tested the drone through the keyboard. There was no problem with the electro-optical system. There were two enhanced cameras. One was above the original cockpit, which was a flight control camera. The other was below the nose, mainly for reconnaissance and photography. Thus, this lens could be zoomed and rotated 180 degrees. There was no problem with the radar either. The progress and power had also been greatly improved. The flight control system was even more sensitive. After the enhancement, high-precision telescopes and sensors were added to monitor the flight attitude in real time. It's just that this operation is a little troublesome. There was nothing wrong with the system, but the operation was simply tedious. He slapped his thigh. How could he have forgotten about the lever? He took out a box from the room, which contained Logitech's flight controller. This set of flight controls and rudders cost him more than $2,000. He connected several data cables and pushed the control stick. Yes. There was no reaction. It was normal because the system was incompatible. He knew how to make the system compatible, but he definitely couldn't write code. But it didn't matter. Who asked him to have a cheat? Add points. In the end, Tang Rui still chose to use the source points and strengthen the avionics system, software. He consumed 1 origin point. The entire system changed drastically. The avionics system screen, which originally had no user interface experience, became very sci-fi-like. All the function bars and sub-pages became simple and perfect, and all the data was displayed on the computer screen. Tang Rui held the control stick and stepped on the rudder. The drone immediately gave feedback. The ailerons, elevators, and rudder all responded at the same time. It was very smooth. He looked at the last 2 points on the system interface. He did not plan to keep it either. Directly improve the engine. In the end, he only spent 1 origin point to improve the engine, which was much cheaper than the avionics system. He added the remaining 1 origin point to the energy system. The drone's overall improvements were completed. On the system interface's experience bar, the indication that it could not be leveled up finally disappeared. Item. Exquisite Fixed-Wing Drone Plus 3, EXP 163/12000, Enhancement. Body, Avionics, Engine, Power, Origin. 0. After the overall strengthening, the experience points for upgrading the drone also increased. But it didn't matter. As long as he could still level up, everything was fine. Tang Rui grabbed the drone and prepared to carry it downstairs. In the end, not only did he not pick it up, but he also almost sprained his waist. Is it that heavy? He weighed his hands. The entire drone weighed at least 40 kilograms, which was about 100 pounds smaller. With his physique, it was difficult enough to carry 50 caddies of rice, let alone a drone that weighed nearly 100. F***ck. Tang Rui bared his teeth, held his waist, and looked at the drone on the workbench, a little speechless. He pondered for a while. He took out his luggage from his room. First, he put the computer, the control stick, the steering wheel, the signal antenna, the backup battery, and other things into the suitcase. Then, he put the drone in. He dragged his luggage and left the house. Fortunately, there was an elevator. If there wasn't, he would have had to hire someone to help him. They arrived at the basement parking lot. Tang Rui dragged the trolley case to the back of a dilapidated Harvard H6 and opened the trunk. This was a second-hand car. The original owner had already driven for more than 100,000 kilometers. However, he did not mind. Anyway, it was just a means of transportation. It was fine as long as it could be driven. He stuffed the drone and suitcase into the car before leaving the neighborhood. At this time, the square had long been occupied by the elderly folk who had finished their meals. This meant that if he wanted to test the drone, he had to find another place. Cuckoo. As soon as he drove out of the neighborhood, his stomach protested. He didn't eat lunch. The food that he ate in the morning had long been digested. He had been busy before. He was very focused, so he didn't feel anything. Now that he was driving, he felt empty and hungry. However, he was not in the mood to eat. Therefore, he found a bun shop by the roadside and bought a few buns. It was merely edible. It was fine as long as he was not hungry. Tang Rui drove the car and arrived at Laoshan Forest Park. He did not enter the park. Instead, they followed the winding mountain road in the forest park and drove straight into the mountains. He also bought a 40-liter barrel of diesel at the gas station near the mountain pass. Tang Rui followed the winding mountain road for more than 10 minutes and arrived at an observation deck. This observation deck was built on the slope of a small mountain. It sported a magnificent view of the surrounding area, overlooking half of the forest below. There was no one on the observation deck at that time. Who would run into the deep mountains in the middle of the night? Was there something wrong with him? However, there were ready-made seats and empty platforms here, which made it a suitable spot to test a drone. Tang Rui parked the car by the side, but he didn't turn off the engine and headlights. After all, there were only two dim solar-powered lights here, and the surroundings were pitch-black. If he didn't turn on the car lights, it would really be a little scary. Just as Tang Rui finished adjusting the equipment and filled the drone with fuel to prepare for the test, raindrops suddenly fell from the sky. Is it raining? He took out his phone and opened the weather forecast. It was indeed going to rain tonight. He had not paid attention to it before. But it didn't matter. The drone was not some scale model, so the rain shouldn't be a problem. Tang Rui placed the drone and hid in the observation deck. There was a canopy here, so he didn't have to worry about getting wet. He sat in front of the computer with his left hand on the accelerator and his right hand on the control stick. His feet were placed next to the steering wheel. The avionics system was activated. The engine started. He released the brakes. He pushed the throttle. Boom! Two blue exhaust flames spewed out from the engine of the drone. If one looked closely, one could even see the Mach rings in the exhaust flames. The powerful thrust sent the drone flying. Tang Rui hurriedly pulled up the control stick and pulled up the nose of the plane. Whoosh! The drone rotated at a high angle and flew straight into the sky. The thrust of the engine enhanced by the system is too powerful. He was shocked just now. If not for his quick reaction, he would have pulled the control stick. If he hesitated, the drone would rush out of the viewing platform and dive into the forest. With this thrust, if he added support to the drone, it could take off vertically like a rocket. It was still the same concept. As long as there was sufficient thrust, even bricks could fly. Tang Rui handled the drone and maintained it at 700 feet. It was not that the drone could not fly high, but he did not dare to. The radar could not scan at all at an altitude of 700 feet and in a mountainous area. He activated the map scanning function of the drone and generated a 3-dimensional simulation map of the surface in real time. Looking at the 3-dimensional simulation map on the computer screen, he controlled the drone and began to shuttle between the mountains and valleys. It was an amazing sensation. Occasionally, he would fly a few maneuvers or push the throttle to experience the thrill of flying at high speed. Unknowingly, the drone had already flown 20 kilometers. Roar! The rain outside was getting heavier. Tang Rui thought for a moment and directly turned off the low-light camera and turned on the infrared thermal imaging. Just as the infrared thermal imaging system was turned on, a bunch of human-shaped red dots suddenly appeared on the screen. What was going on? It was raining heavily, and they were in the deep mountains and forests. What were these people doing? Chapter 7. Class that a wanted criminal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Captain, the rain is getting heavier. The smell has been covered, and Yuan Bao can't track us anymore. In Old Mountain Forest was a police officer with a police dog and, beside him, the captain. Damn it. The captain growled in anger. However, he knew that it was useless to flare up now. He had to find a way to solve the problem. The fugitives went up the mountains in the afternoon and only entered the forest in the evening. If it weren't for the police dogs, they would never have been able to track the fugitive. In the end, it was raining heavily. It covered up the scent of the fugitive. This made it impossible for them to continue tracking. Report the situation to the command. The captain pondered for a long time and could not think of any good ideas. It was too difficult to find traces of the two of them on such a rainy night and in the deep mountains and forests. Now, they could only hope that the command center could provide them with intelligence support. Otherwise, they could only return dejectedly, and this operation would almost be declared a failure. On the other side, Tang Rui flew the drone toward the pile of red dots on the screen. After arriving, the electro-optical system was fully activated. The high-zoom lens under the drone adjusted its direction and began to take pictures of the crowd below. The image on the computer screen was refreshed at a speed countless times faster than the human eye could catch. The photos on the screen changed from black and white to color, from pixelated to ultra-clear, and from the entire picture to the magnified part. In less than 3 seconds, clear photos appeared on the computer screen. Even the scars on the faces of the people in the photos were clearly visible. SWAT. After Tang Rui saw the clear photo, he had a dumbfounded look. These people are SWAT operatives. He had thought that this group of people were grave robbers. Moreover, these special police officers even had guns and police dogs. Was this an operation? Since they were there to capture someone, why d? Tang Rui pondered for a moment before he flew the drone toward the SWAT team. Very quickly, he saw 2 red dots on the screen. The camera started snapping pictures again. The photos of the 2 middle-aged men appeared on his laptop. One held a black star pistol, while the other carried a shotgun. The 2 of them were fleeing. They were 1.6 kilometers away from the SWAT team. In that case, the SWAT team must be on an operation to apprehend the 2 of them. Tang Rui took the photos of the 2 fugitives to the bounty platform for face recognition comparison. Good heavens! Both of them were wanted criminals suspected of murder, kidnapping, gang violence, and other major crimes. What should he do in such a situation? The answer was to call the police. Tang Rui picked up the phone and dialed 110 to call the police. Hello, 110. I found 2 most wanted criminals. On the Skynet command platform, the police were in shock when they received Tang Rui's call. Finding 2 A-ranked wanted criminals on the street was not a small matter. Where did you find them? Can you describe it in detail? I used a drone to take pictures and found them. Then, through facial recognition, I found that they were all class that I wanted. Alright, where are they now? Did they notice your drone? In Old Mountain Forest. No, they didn't see my drone. Old Mountain Forest. You just said that you used facial recognition. Can you tell me the names of these 2 people? Okay, one of them is Abmer Wu and the other is Jun Yang. One is armed with a black star, while the other had a shotgun. The police officer who answered the call was stunned. It wasn't because Tang Rui's description was too clear, but rather that the names of these 2 wanted criminals were too familiar to him. Wasn't that the target of tonight's special operation? Chief, I received a report from a member of the public. He said that he had discovered Abmer and Jun Yang with a drone. They were just ready to announce that the operation had failed. The SWAT team was about to return to the director and file a report. They, too, were stunned beyond words. Are you positive it's Obmer and June? The director asked quickly. Yes, he said he used facial recognition to find out that these two people are wanted criminals, so he called the police. Give me the phone. The director ran over and took the phone. Hello, friend. Can your drone lock onto two people? Yes, my drone is right above them. Alright, what are their coordinates? The coordinates are. After the bureau chief received the coordinates reported by Tang Rui, he immediately gave the order to the SWAT team. But after Tang Rui heard this order, after looking at the three-dimensional simulated topographic map of the location of the two wanted criminals, he felt that something was a little off. That. Chief, can I say something? Comrade, please go ahead. It's like this. There's a steep slope in front of them. If they don't want to return the way they came, they have to go down the steep slope. The SWAT team was in the middle of the hill. They could go directly to the bottom of the steep slope to intercept the two people. Tang Rui thought for a moment and spoke out about the situation of the terrain and his own thoughts. Can you describe the terrain there in detail? The director quickly asked. If it was really this kind of terrain, it would be too advantageous for their pursuit. However, he couldn't see the situation at the scene and wanted to ask for more details. A detailed description. Why don't you guys add me on WeChat and start a video call? You guys can watch it yourself. Tang Rui hesitated for a moment. He really couldn't explain the terrain through words. It was better to let them study it themselves. It would prevent the wrong information from causing a mistake in command. Okay, Xiao Chen, add this comrade on WeChat. Oh, right, I haven't asked for your name yet. My surname is Tang. My full name is Tang Rui. My WeChat number is. Very quickly. Tang Rui added the operator's WeChat. As the video was connected, Tang Rui's handsome face was displayed on the big screen of the command center. At the same time, Tang Rui also saw the situation inside the command center. Good heavens! Why did they make such a big fuss? Comrade Tang Rui, thank you for your help to the police. Of course, of course. I'll turn my phone screen to the computer. After Tang Rui finished speaking, he placed the phone on the stand and aimed the screen at the computer. The people in the command hall were also shocked and they saw the equipment on the table. Originally, they thought Tang Rui's drone was just an ordinary civilian drone. In the end, he realized he was mistaken when he saw the equipment on the desktop and the image displayed on the computer screen. However, now was not the time to dwell on this problem. The most important thing now was figuring out the old mountain forest situation. Crackle. Tang Rui tapped on the keyboard and displayed all the 3D terrain maps that he had recorded in the previous version. A map of the forest around the mountain appeared on the screen. Damn! The people in the command hall gasped and they saw the topographic map on the computer screen. It was crystal clear. With a glance, he could plan the route. Tang Rui even marked the location of the SWAT team and the wanted criminal on the topographic map, as well as their escape route. It could be said that with the real-time monitoring of Tang Rui's drone, there was no need for the SWAT team to continue the pursuit. It was completely possible for the police in other places to intercept them at the periphery. However, this was just a casual remark. The two wanted criminals were simply too dangerous. Both were armed, and the potential danger of letting them escape was too great. Therefore, they had to be arrested in a short period of time. Zhang Hui, immediately lead the team and head to your 3 o'clock. Watch yourself when you go down the mountain. After arriving at the foot of the mountain, he walked 800 meters along the hillside in the 11 o'clock direction and then looked for a favorable terrain to hide. After the director carefully looked at the topographic map, he gave the order to the SWAT team. The SWAT team followed the order and went down the mountain. Comrade Tang Rui, can you film the criminals and let me see their situation? After the bureau chief gave the order, he said to Tang Rui. Alright, no problem. Tang Rui switched to the main screen, controlled the drone's flight attitude, and started the crazy shooting mode again. This time, he even activated the image tracking. Swoosh! In less than 3 seconds, the screen showed the situation of the two fugitives with the sharpness of a high-definition monitor. Even the water droplets on their faces when the raindrops hit them were clearly visible. Upon seeing this scene, the command hall gasped again. This was Skynet. At that moment, the chief wished that the police force could be equipped with such equipment. Chapter 8. Aerial information support from the drone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. F***CK. Damn it. If I find out who betrayed me this time, his entire family will die. Obmer, who had slipped and fallen in the woods, cursed. Stop moaning. Let's escape before we talk about revenge, Yang Jun growled angrily, his eyes cold. He had already thought it through. Wait until you get out of here, then look for a chance to kill Wu Di. This time, they were targeted by the police because that idiot Obmer didn't think things through. If he hadn't reacted quickly and realized that something was wrong, he would have been caught long ago. However, it was useless to say that now. The SWAT team was right behind them. Fortunately, the heavy rain prevented the police dogs from tracking their scent. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have the chance to escape. F***CK. This mountain road is damn difficult to walk on. Obmer fell again and opened his mouth to curse. It's just this section. After we descend the mountain and pass the ravine in front, there's a village. When the time came, he would grab a car and go straight to Wuzhen. If there's a car, then good. I must have a good time. Both of them had a good idea. What they didn't know was that their every move was displayed on the big screen in the command hall. Tang Rui flew the drone and kept circling above their heads. The heavy rain and thick forest masked the drone's presence. Up until now, the two hadn't noticed anything unusual above their heads. Zhang Hui, get ready. The target is at 1 o'clock, 300 meters away from you. Targets are armed. 1 black star and 1 shotgun. Fire at will. If you are uncertain, you are authorized to directly take out the target. The director looked at the situation on the big screen and gave an order to the special police team. Understood. After receiving the order, Zhang Hui, the captain of the special police team, silently signaled the team members to pay attention. After seeing the captain's gesture, everyone got ready and stared at the hillside in the 1 o'clock direction. Very quickly, they saw the two of them descending the mountain. Zhang Hui stretched out a hand, signaling the team members to stay hidden and not make any hasty moves. Whether it was Tang Rui or the people in the command hall, everyone looked nervously at the scene on the screen. 200 meters. 100 meters. 50 meters. 20 meters. The two sides were rapidly closing on each other. The two wanted criminals sensed no danger and plunged head-on into the encirclement. It was at that moment, the two wanted fugitives were completely exposed to the SWAT team. Zhang Hui clenched his fist. Bang! Bang! 2 gunshots rang out in the forest. The two wanted criminals who were descending the mountain screamed and fell to the ground almost at the same time. At the same time, the SWAT officers who had been lying in ambush on both sides rushed forward and restrained the two of them. It took less than 10 seconds for the two of them to be restrained. Good. Pa, pa, pa. Applause echoed in the command hall. The director was very satisfied with this clean and straightforward method. Tang Rui also yelled in joy. The 2 shots just now directly hit the right arm of the 2 people holding the gun. After the hit, the fugitives fell to the ground and dropped their weapons. They were held down by the SWAT and were completely restrained. This way, the 2 of them were captured alive, and their legs were not injured. They could be completely carried out, reducing the burden on the team. It could be said that the operation was perfect. Thank you, Comrade Tang Rui, for your support to our police. If it weren't for the drone's aerial reconnaissance, it would have been very difficult for us to catch the two fugitives. It's what I should do. Besides, I didn't do anything. All the credit goes to the SWAT team. Tang Rui shook his head and said modestly. Without these special forces, even if you had drones to scout, it would be useless. This was something he was very clear about. No matter what, I still have to thank you for your help. There will definitely be a reward. Since the leader says so, I won't decline. Hearing that there was a reward, Tang Rui did not decline. After all, he was still short of money. After saying a few words, Tang Rui flew the drone in the direction of the provincial road and scanned the terrain in that direction. Through this, and coupled with the information on the topographic map, the SWAT team could plan the most convenient and easiest route to avoid taking detours. At the same time, the command center could also send a car to the provincial road in advance to wait for the arrival of the special police team. Evidently, the terrain information provided by the drone saved the authorities a lot of trouble. This situation made the director of the command center even more envious of the drones. Thus, he made up his mind. After this mission was over, he had to report the entire mission to the provincial office in detail. They also emphasized the important role that drones played in this mission. In the blink of an eye, more than 40 minutes passed. Under the assistance of Tang Rui's air support, the SWAT team brought the two fugitives out of the mountainous area and arrived at the provincial road. The police cars and ambulances that were already waiting on the provincial highway quickly picked up the people and returned to the city. It's been hard on you, Tang Rui. The personnel have returned safely. You can also take back the drone. We still have to go through some processing for your reward. Xiao Chen will contact you for the details. Thank you again for your support to the police. Please, don't mention it, sir. It's something I had to do. If there's nothing else, I'll be going back. Stay safe. Remember to report in advance the next time you fly a drone. Alright, thank you, sir. After hanging up the video call, there was still a little awkwardness on Tang Rui's face. After all, the country's control over drones was still strict. Normally, his drone wouldn't even be allowed to fly at all. Many people own drones these days. However, those were all unmanned drones. They weighed no more than 7 kilograms, had a visual range of no more than 500 meters, and flew at an altitude of no more than 500 feet. This type of drone could only be considered a toy. However, if his drone flew higher and faster, military radar might mistake it for a cruise missile. Now that would be a huge problem. This was also the reason why he did not dare to fly the drone above 700 feet. This was because the radar could not scan anything below 1,000 feet. Tang Rui flew the drone home. At this time, the drone only had another 10 minutes of fuel left. However, he was not in a hurry at all. A distance of over 20 kilometers could be covered by a drone in less than 2 minutes. Swiftly, the drone swooshed back to the observation platform. Tang Rui extended the landing gear, found an angle, and controlled the drone to land slowly. Squeak. The moment the drone landed, he stepped on the brakes. Even so, the entire drone glided 8 to 9 meters forward before it completely stopped. My hands are a little rusty. This landing is really a bit of a drag. The landing speed was a little too fast. If it weren't for the timely braking, the plane would have crashed. However, after this flight, his EXP had reached 1772 points. According to the experience gain rate, he would be able to calculate the number of points he obtained. After another 7 or 8 flights, the drone would be able to upgrade again. It was just that the fuel was a little expensive. The gas cost a few hundred yuan for each trip. If he wanted to upgrade it, he would need to burn at least a few $1,000s worth of fuel. Just thinking about it made his heart ache a little. He hoped that the reward for helping him capture the wanted criminals would be enough to make up for the gas money. Forget it. He didn't want to think about it anymore. Looking at the increasingly heavy rain, Tang Rui hurriedly packed up his things and went home. Chapter 9. The paper airplane hovered in the air. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Are you free on the 13th? On the way home, Tang Rui received a call from his classmate Zhou Tao. They were like father and son in the same dormitory, and their relationship was excellent. If you're married, you have time. If you're not married, you don't have time. Tang Rui replied afterward. Get lost. You never wanted to get married. How could he get married? Haha. Let's not talk about this. Next Saturday, which is the 13th, our alma mater's Aeromodeling Club and China Southern's Aeromodeling Club will jointly organize an event. China Southern Airlines applied for airspace at our alma mater's venue. It's a no-limits, fly.as.u.please session. Our graduates can also participate. Are you going? There was such a good thing. He was worried that there was no place to test the various functions of the drone. Today's test flight was only to test the electro-optical system. As for the drone's maximum altitude, maximum speed, stall speed, climb rate, and other performance parameters, there was no way to test it. Go, where is the location? Over at the Immortal Grove Purple Gold Academy. I understand. Niels. Get lost. After hanging up the phone, Tang Rui still had a smile on his face. Although the two of them were very close, they didn't usually communicate much. After all, everyone had graduated. Each had their own matters. He opened his own online store and engaged in self-media. It was still considered easy and free. People like Zhou Tao, who didn't come from a local family but chose to stay in Jinling, were the most hard-pressed. Let alone the fact that work was extremely tiring, there would be little money left after paying the rent every month. Not to mention that he still needed to eat, drink, shop, and occasionally go out to relax. It was good enough that he could earn enough. Savings were out of the question. Everyone was usually busy with their own lives. Only when they were in a bad mood and had too much negative energy accumulated in their hearts would they call for help and go for a drink. Under normal circumstances, Tang Rui would play the role of sprinkling salt on the other party's wounds. To use his words to describe the inner turmoil of the great, this was called fighting poison with poison. Although he would be forced to drink in the end, he was still very happy to have a venomous tongue. Back in the neighborhood. After parking the car, she laboriously carried the aircraft model upstairs. The first thing Tang Rui did after returning home was not pack his things but shower. He was drenched in the rain. He was sweating again. Her whole body was sticky and uncomfortable. 10 minutes later. Having just showered, Tang Rui sat on the chair with a towel draped over his shoulders. He crossed his legs and sipped the iced Coke in his hand. He finished half a bottle in one go. Burp. It felt good. However, his mood immediately turned sour when he saw the paper airplanes all over the ground. What should we do with these? Throwing them away would be a waste. He didn't want to throw them away. There was no place to put it. Paper airplanes couldn't be sold. At most, they could only be sold as waste paper. Wait a minute. Who said it couldn't be sold? Tang Rui picked up a paper airplane at his feet and looked at the system panel on it. Item. Paper airplane, experience. 0/20, LO, origin. 0, there was only very little EXP needed for him to level up. He only needed 20. He wanted to test the effects of the upgrade first. Ha! He blew on the nose of the paper airplane and threw it out. The paper airplane flew steadily in the air, its trajectory drawing a straight line in the air. Ding! The paper plane crashed into the mirror of the shoe cabinet and landed on the ground. Tang Rui got up, ran to the shoe cabinet, and picked up the paper airplane on the ground. Item. Paper airplane, experience. 6/20, origin. 0, he gained 6 experience points in one go, and he could level up after 3 or 4 flights. There was nothing much to say. He continued. With a light toss, the paper airplane flew out again. This time, it might have been due to the collision of the nose, causing the flight path to be a little crooked, but it did not affect anything. He picked up the paper airplane again. This flight added 7 experience points. Not bad. Whoosh. After 2 more flights, the paper airplane gained 5 more experience points, reaching the level requirement. Tang Rui directly clicked to upgrade. Swoosh. A faint light flashed. The paper airplane was upgraded. Item. Stable paper airplane +1, experience. 5/40, origin. 0, he picked up the paper airplane and looked at it carefully. It didn't seem to have changed, but it seemed to have changed a little. He really couldn't tell exactly what had changed. The word stable appeared on the system panel. After Tang Rui frowned, he threw out the paper airplane again. He wanted to see the effects of the paper airplane after it was upgraded. Whoosh! The paper plane drew a standard horizontal line in the air and flew straight towards the window. It didn't seem to have changed much. The paper airplane from before was also flying in this manner. Just as he was feeling a little disappointed, a gust of wind suddenly blew in through the window. The paper airplane that was flying toward the window suddenly stopped at this moment and slowly retreated. F***ck. Tang Rui was dumbfounded. As he stared in shock, the paper airplane slowly flew backward and stopped after rising 10 centimeters. It hovered steadily in the air. 10 seconds passed. The wind blowing in through the window decreased. The paper plane that was hovering in the air flew forward again. As it flew, it slowly descended. However, before the paper plane landed, a gust of wind blew in through the window. Following this wind, the paper plane slowly retreated and rose again, finally hovering in the air. The corners of Tang Rui's mouth twitched unconsciously. Was this magic? That's right. This was a spell unique to the field of aerodynamics. At this moment, Tang Rui already understood why the paper airplane would appear to reverse, rise, and hover. Theoretically speaking, in order to make the paper airplane achieve such an effect, one had to first ensure one thing. That was the folded paper airplane. The 2 sides of the central axis were completely balanced by gravity. In other words, the weight on the left and right sides of the central axis was absolutely balanced and completely identical. Furthermore, the weight, shape, and angle of inclination of the wings had to be the same. Secondly was the center of gravity. He folded a canard plane. Normally, the center of gravity of a canard plane was between the canard and the wings. But the problem was that this was a paper plane. Its center of gravity was at the nose of the plane, very close to the front. As everyone knew, the closer the center of gravity of the plane was to the front, the more stable it was, and the easier it was to fly in a straight line. In such a situation, the balance would be perfect, where the center of gravity was in the front. There would be the same amount of lift on both wings. The body of the plane would be in line with the ultra-light weight of the paper plane itself. All of this added up to a perfect balance between lift, drag, and gravity. That was why the paper airplane could hover in the air. Tang Rui picked up a paper airplane that he had folded himself and hadn't been upgraded by the system, and threw it toward the window. Whoosh! At first, the paper plane could still draw a straight line, but as it approached the window, it immediately began to deviate from the direction of the wind blowing in through the window and finally hit the wall. He was not surprised by this situation. Paper airplanes that had not been optimized by the system panel could not reach that ideal state. After all, it was handmade. It was impossible to achieve a perfect balance. After a while, the wind blowing in through the window stopped. The paper airplane hovering in the air also slowly glided down. Tang Rui walked over and picked up the paper airplane. Item. Stable paper airplane +1, experience. 58/40, upgradable, origin. 0. He didn't expect that this wind would not only let him discover the awesomeness of the paper airplane but also filled up his experience points. There was nothing to hesitate about. He directly clicked on the upgrade button. Swoosh! A faint light flashed. The shape of the paper plane had become more in line with the air dynamics. There were even 2 gaps at the tail. Together with the curvature of the wings, it even became 2 horizontal tails. Item. Stable paper airplane +2, experience. 18/. Cannot be upgraded, origin. 0. Tang Rui finished looking at the upgraded panel and found that the paper airplane could no longer continue upgrading. There was nothing wrong with thinking about it. After all, it was just a paper airplane. The first upgrade optimized the overall structure, and the second adjustment adjusted the body shape. Without strengthening it, there was no room for improvement. As for strengthened paper airplanes, it was impossible. Source points were still very precious, he could not waste precious source points on paper planes. The paper airplane in front of him was stunning enough. Tang Rui picked up a few paper airplanes that hadn't leveled up from the ground and threw them toward the window. He planned to get a few more upgraded paper airplanes and then shoot a video of the paper airplane hovering in the air. Even if the videos were fake, many people would still like to watch them. Needless to say, he was telling the truth. When the time came, he would upload the video and put the paper airplane on the shelf. There would probably be many people who would buy it. Chapter 10. Paper airplanes are popular. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A few minutes later, Tang Rui upgraded more than 10 paper airplanes. These were enough for him to shoot a short video. However, the wind outside the window was gusty. It wasn't a suitable condition to shoot the video he wanted. Therefore, he turned on the 2 horsepower air conditioner in the living room and adjusted the fan to the maximum. Done. Tang Rui took out his phone, placed it on the stand, adjusted the direction, and pressed the record button. Because it was a short video, he wasted no time talking to the screen. He picked up the upgraded paper airplane and threw it at the air conditioner. Whoosh! The airplane flew straight toward the air conditioner. When it was about 2 meters away from the air conditioner, it slowed down. Then, it swayed in the air twice before hovering steadily in the air. Then, Tang Rui continued to throw out more than 10 paper airplanes. Some were suspended in midair, while some were thrown at different angles, causing them to crash instead of aiming at the air conditioner vent. There was even an in-air collision that resulted in both paper airplanes falling at the same time. But no matter what, the short 3-minute video was already shocking enough. He didn't even need to use a computer to edit it later. He used the software that came with the website and added some subtitles. There's the same paper airplane in the window. This was the caption he added to the video. After that, he uploaded the video to WeChat. At the same time, 2 kinds of paper airplanes were displayed in the display window. One was a paper airplane that was upgraded once and sold for 5 yuan. The other was a paper airplane that could be upgraded twice. The price was 10 yuan. It was hard to say if he could sell it. After all, this price was indeed a little too high. However, this was something that the system had upgraded. If it was too cheap, it would be a little unfair to the system interface. I don't care. If I can sell it, then sell it. If I can't sell it, then forget it. Tang Rui muted his phone, turned off the air conditioner in the living room, and went back to his room to sleep. Impossible, absolutely impossible. You lied to me again. If I hadn't received 9 years of compulsory education, would have been fooled again. Thin iron wire. Some kind of tape. Fishing line. Downloading the video. We'll analyze it frame by frame to find the flaws. As we all know, videos can't be modified, so this must be real. Selling a paper airplane for 10 yuan. You must be crazy. The vast majority of netizens did not approve of the hovering paper airplane. They all felt that this was a scam. It was the same as the previous video, where the paper airplane was fixed between two electric fans with a fishing line. Of course. Because the video that Tang Rui sent up wasn't edited. Moreover, he had thrown the paper airplane from his hand. It was more difficult to fake it, so some people were still skeptical. However, the fact that the paper airplane was hovering in the air was too unbelievable. Therefore, everyone started to find someone to verify the authenticity of the video. Among them, Yan Bojun was the one that the netizens looked for the most. Why are there so many people sending messages? Did something big happen again? Yan Bojun, who was about to sleep, saw that countless people had tagged him backstage. He quickly clicked on the video link. 3 minutes later. Yan Bojun was dumbfounded when he saw the video being played repeatedly. Good heavens! This paper airplane. How could a person fold such an airplane? Even a grade .8 worker wouldn't be able to. Gravity and lift perfectly offset each other, and the two forces were absolutely balanced. This was too awesome. Although, in theory, paper airplanes that could hover existed, in reality, no one could fold such paper airplanes. Frowning, Yan Bojun downloaded the video and watched it frame by frame. The video that Tang Rui uploaded was completely unedited. It was very easy to judge the authenticity of the video. After reading it, Yan Bojun had an idea. He took out his phone and started making a video. I was about to go to bed when a bunch of people tagged me backstage and asked me to watch a video. This was the original video. The blogger called Fish Pond threw the paper airplane at the air conditioner. The paper plane flew steadily and hovered in the air 2 meters away from the air conditioner. Then, he continued to throw paper airplanes at the air conditioner. Some succeeded, some failed, and some crashed into the hovering paper airplane. I downloaded this video. The blogger didn't edit the video at all, and I didn't find any traces of special effects. Basically, there was no problem with this video. Since there was nothing wrong with the video, how did the paper airplane in the video hover in the air? First of all, we need to know why paper airplanes can glide in the air. This involves. I've already placed an order for the paper airplane. After it arrives, I'll test it out myself. Do you understand? Yan Bojun explained the scientific theories in a very fast manner. He naturally understood what he understood. Those who didn't, however, wouldn't understand even after watching his video. After recording the video, Yan Bojun began editing the video and added subtitles, listing the corresponding formulas. After he was done, he uploaded it directly. Along with this video of his being uploaded, it proved that Tang Rui's video was real. This caused the video of the paper airplane to go viral in an instant. He had thought it was a scam. No one cared. Now, after listening to his explanation, she realized how difficult it was to fold such a paper airplane. What else was there to say? Like. Collection. It was forwarded. More and more people saw this video, and it became more and more popular. Naturally, it became a trending topic. Then, he couldn't suppress it anymore. The data started to soar. It could be said that almost all the people who were still playing the game at this time had seen this video. Of course, not everyone believed it, and there was controversy. Tang Rui's video was both explosive and controversial. It was unsurprising that it had become popular. At the same time, the paper airplanes he put on the shelves were also selling like hotcakes. After all, 5 or 10 yuan was not much, and buying a paper airplane that could hover seemed like a good deal. Even if it couldn't hover in the air, it could still be returned. Therefore, the 500 paper airplanes that he put on the shelves were rapidly decreasing. The next day, when Tang Rui got up, it was already almost 9 o'clock. She slept until she woke up naturally, and all the fatigue in her body disappeared. It was comfortable. Out of habit, she picked up the phone on the bedside table. 99 plus, where did he get so much information? He clicked on WeChat to take a look. Good heavens! So many private messages. Tang Rui was stunned for a moment and clicked open these private messages to take a look at the contents. Paper planes were popular. He opened the window. The 500 fake paper airplanes that he put on the shelves before he went to bed yesterday had already been sold out. Upon waking up, he had earned 3,000 yuan. The surprise came too suddenly, making him a little uncomfortable. In fact, these paper airplanes weren't even enough to sell. Many private messages told him to continue posting paper airplanes. He thought about the profits of the paper airplane. Tang Rui even wanted to sing out loud to express the joy in his heart.